Hi there, and thank you for joining Change I Am Possible, India's first future tech podcast. Do kindly subscribe and ring the bell to keep updated on the latest content. So today we have with us Lt.Col Monish Ahuja, who is the Managing Director of Punjab Renewables Energy Systems Private Limited. They are revolutionizing the clean energy sector by converting agricultural waste into energy. I wish you enjoyed this conversation.
So thank you for joining Change I Am Possible podcast. Really appreciate it. So, today we're living in exponential time, right? I mean, technology is growing exponentially, and currently I think we are in a revolution of sorts, which is going to happen in the energy field, So, and the front runners obviously seems to be the solar energy, the wind energy, and tidal energy. But somewhere down the corner, which people really don't know about, is something called as biomass. And then you seem to be fronting that. You're the MD of Punjab Renewable Energy Systems. So can you please explain to our listeners what biomass is and what is its potential?
Thanks, Eddie. Thanks for inviting me over here. Yes, rightly said, the bioenergy or biomass spectrum currently is the bottom of the strata. But believe me, if you look at sustainable alternate solutions from a long-term basis, and if you look at the energy paradigm, you will see that bioenergy or biomass is a space where you would get the entire energy spectrum. So particularly with solar, with wind, we are converting it only to electrical energy. And there remains a gap for energy for cooking, energy for mobility, energy for flying. And these forms of energy would come from the biomass or the bioenergy spectrum. The second part is there, like the wind and solar revolution in the last 15 to 20 years, we are at the cusp of the biomass or bioenergy revolution. And thanks for calling us the front runners here, but being market leaders or being the initiators in the process comes with its own challenges and comes with its own advantages and disadvantages to be the first of the block. But it's not a sprint.
Right.
It's a marathon, and it's not necessary to be first of the block, but it's necessary to sustain at it, and it is important to be at it. So there is a big element of patience and perseverance which is involved around it, and it's a space where you have to remain for the long term. So what's biomass? And biomass is basically all forms of biodegradable material, and this comes from forest residues, this comes from the agriculture residues, this comes from the municipal solid waste, this comes from the sewage waste. So everything which is biodegradable in nature is biomass. What we specifically work in Punjab Renewable Energy Systems Private Limited, the acronym which I'm going to use is Prespl, is around the agricultural residues. And if you look at a country like India, or if you look at the global agriculture economy, there is humongous amount of agriculture waste, which is not utilized for the energy potential, which does not have an economic market value because there's no commodity around it. And hence, almost all of it is kind of burnt in the fields. So in India, commonly in the last 5-6 years, we have been seeing Delhi going black, with the agricultural residues across North India being burned. But it's the similar story pan-India. We kind of don't hear it in media because Delhi gets highlighted, but there are other geographies where we have the similar problem. And it's a global problem. So there are other countries we have the similar problem. So if you Google and you see, Singapore also goes black because the agricultural residues in Philippines, Malaysia, Indonesia gets burnt post the harvest. So the wind direction at points of time makes Singapore black as well. So this agricultural residue or biomass now has potential to get converted to multiple forms of energy. Electricity, heating in terms of steam, cooling, you could do cold storages, you could do thermal cooling, you could do AC, refrigeration. In terms of liquid fuels, so you can do bioethanol, biodiesel, drop-in fuel, which is directly petrol, diesel, aviation fuel. You could do gaseous fuels like bio-CNG, compressed biogas, replacement of LPG. All these technological interventions are now available. And where we work is the supply chain management of this agricultural residue for multiple of these technologies to convert it to useful products of energy and utilize them. If you look at the Indian market, the energy usage is predominantly from crude because that's where our energy is predominantly coming from. And almost about 80-85% of it is imported. Even if you look at the coal usage, bulk of our coal in terms of the quantity and quality is again imported. So here we have, being an agrarian economy, here we have a resource which has the potential to replace what we are importing. So we would become self-reliant on energy. It would be indigenous. The projects would be in India. And there is a direct linkage between the farmer and the energy. So there's a statement which Honorable Prime Minister made from the Red Fort on 15th of August 2019. And his statement was, Annadata se urja data. So basically the farmer who's giving us the grain is going to give us the energy. And that's where I see we are on the cusp of the revolution now for actually the Annadata to become the urja data. Right. And that's where this biomass shift of energy utilization is happening. Where we are and why we are in this space. So we are looking at getting this off the ground. We are looking at being a stakeholder partner in this entire energy revolution that India and the world is going to go through, and be a large player as a front runner to be able to contribute to this sustainable energy, green energy, and the revolution which is happening. Get what was a clarion call of Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan. So being ex-defense forces, most of our team members are ex-defense forces. So to get that linkage going between the farmer, which is the Jai Kisan, to the Jai Jawan, which is the defense forces personals, and you have fortunately a large availability of ex-defense servicemen pan-India basis. So we look to engage with them and the farming community to be able to deliver what we do.
Wow, how beautiful is that? First of all, congratulations. I think you're doing a great job, because you mentioned that the energy is produced from waste. You mentioned biodegradable waste, which is your sewage waste, to your what you guys are fronting is agriculture waste, right?
That's right.
And agriculture waste, for the longest time, like you rightfully mentioned, has been creating a whole lot of environmental problem. Not just in India, globally. So tell me, how climate friendly is biogas, and how is it produced?
So when we look at climate change, and when we look at the pollutants from what is getting into the atmosphere, the key pollutants are the SOx derivatives and the NOx derivatives.
Right.
That's what is predominantly contributing to the PM 2.5 or the PM 10, which we kind of measure. The second is the amount of carbon that you're emitting. So the carbon monoxides and the carbon dioxides that you're putting into the atmosphere. So it's a comparative scale. The energy coming from fossil fuels puts in a lot more of carbon into the atmosphere vis-a-vis energy which would come from the bioenergy stream. If you look at the percentage of sulfur oxides and nitrogen oxides, it's negligible, because you do not have those as the initial building block ingredients in the biomass. If you look at the agricultural residue biomass, and for the listeners in layman's term, you're converting solar energy by photosynthesis into a plant which grows in a period of time of 4, 5, 6 months. And then you're utilizing that energy. So it's basically energy storage of the sun in a biomass form.
Right.
And then you're utilizing it to convert to another form of energy, which you need for your day-to-day usage. And what's left is actually carbon, which goes back to the soil, right? With no addition of any other chemical substance in the process. Hence, it's a complete circular economy. You're taking something from the sun, growing and putting it back into the soil and completing the loop. There are multiple usages, as I mentioned to you. So each of the processes does require some bit of engineering, chemical processes involved, and all of these are environment friendly.
Right.
So the technologies conform to the environment norms. The technologies conform to no pollutants being put into the environment. And hence, on the comparative scale, you are, I would say, carbon neutral, you are environment friendly, and you are creating a sustainable circular economy.
So tell me, I mean, how are you enabling the farmers and the army force?
So, uniquely, the model of the business works around the farming community, who we get on board to become what we call as VLEs, village level entrepreneurs. And these farmers get employment and they work for themselves in their own fields, in their own regional geographies. So a farmer in Punjab, or say a farmer in Karnataka, or a farmer in Maharashtra works in their own fields, their neighbors' fields, their village fields, their district levels, to be able to harness and remove this agriculture residue or agriculture waste from the fields and bring it to warehousing or bring it to depots, which we manage and we create. So we create a infrastructure base for logistics network in rural India, closer to the farming community, for them to be able to bring this waste out of the fields and bring it to warehouse where they get paid for it. There is a transfer of material,
Right.
and hence there is a financial transaction. Surprisingly, if you look at the Sustainable Development Goals, the business model of Prespl fits to the T to most of the Sustainable Development Goals. And what is it? So we create employment in rural India. We create financial inclusion for them through the banking channel. We create a waste to energy spectrum. We create a job leaving alone gender diversity. So the women participate as much as the men participate. We create a stoppage of the exodus of the rural youth looking for jobs to cities and towns, because we are creating jobs in their houses.
Brilliant.
We create for them a space where they can utilize their existing farming equipment, tractors, trolleys, et al., where it gets into usage, because most of these are only used during the sowing time. So we are creating a space where they can utilize it all year round. We create transportation network for them in a geographical area of 15-20 kilometers. So they are doing something on their own. And in all this, at the end of the day, they earn money. So that's the basis of the business model. And what we do in Prespl is empower these VLEs. How do we empower them? So we bring to them specialized farming equipment for them to utilize to be able to remove this agriculture residue from the field. And different types of agriculture residues require different type of farming equipment. So we invest in the farming equipment.
Right.
We provide it free of cost to the VLE. We train them. We educate them about their usage. We also maintain and manage them. So we help them in terms of repair, maintenance, and ensure that these VLEs work for themselves to bring this agriculture product or waste to us. Once it is available with us, again the warehousing is localized, where these are the VLEs or the youth who manage the warehousing for us. So we create jobs in warehouses. And this material is then shipped and moved to industries which can utilize them. So we create the market linkage. We ourselves as a company also utilize this material for creating some forms of energy. So what we do is we densify this agricultural residue into products called as briquettes and pellets. And these briquettes and pellets is just pure densification of this agriculture waste. So we establish rural industry and we set up these projects with briquetting and pelleting plants. And then what happens is this form of energy, because now it is dense, is easier to transport.
Right.
So we are taking this agriculture waste residue in forms of
Converting
briquettes and
them,
pellets to industrial zones and cities and towns. And as a thumb rule basis, you can move it to about 400 to 500 kilometers and still be competitive on price points with fossil fuel. So that means the Annadata is becoming Urja Data as much as 500 kilometers away. And when we take this to the industrial towns or the industry utilizes this clean fuel because it's cleaner comparative to coal, furnace oil, other fossil fuels, diesel, and meets their energy requirements utilizing this. So we replace the carbon extensive fossil fuels. Once we started doing this, so we have created a briquette and a pellet as a commodity.
Right.
Now you have a commodity with a standard. The industry per se found value in this because at the end of the day, on their bottom line, they save money.
Right.
And they have their own global mandates to go carbon neutral, to go clean. So we kind of support that. We started doing O&M services for the industry per se. So we told the industry, hey, look, your business is to make pharmaceuticals, your business is to make chips and lays, the Pepsis of the world, your business is to do beverages. What you're utilizing this material for is to generate steam, process steam, which is a utility for you. So why not we take away your headache and we manage the entire ecosystem and give you utility steam at cost. And the industry kind of moved towards this, and we are one of the larger players now in the Indian market where we are selling energy from biomass, so bioenergy in terms of steam. So we don't need government intervention, we don't need regulation, we don't need the taxpayers' money, and here we are utilizing the agriculture residue and have created a bioenergy ecosystem. So we sell energy as steam as well. So these are the spaces we work in. So we sell agricultural residue to an industry which can utilize it. We sell briquettes to an industry who wants to buy briquette. We sell steam to an industry who wants to buy steam. So there are multiple business units which work independently.
Brilliant. So I completely commendable. I think what you're doing is you're creating an industry. You mentioned you're creating village level entrepreneurs. So how brilliant is that? Because, and plus, it's the agricultural waste which they would have actually ended up burning, damaging the environment. Here you're taking that, enabling them, providing them with the infrastructure, building, like you said, making them make briquettes and pellets and transporting it to industrial places to convert them into energy. How brilliant is that? But now tell me, you're actually building a circular economy, which is extremely awesome. But this, in all fairness, is at a very niche space because, at this point in time, globally, we're largely looking at maybe a solar energy, wind, or in other case scenarios, tidal energy. But still nobody is looking at biomass. You are, and I'm sure there's people around the world which you mentioned are looking at. But how difficult or easy it is to fronting a technology, or energy revolution which is in nascent stage. Do you think that biomass has the potential to be an alternate to the dying out fossil fuel industry?
So really a fantastic question because if you look at energy from wind, solar or tidal, They are energy forms which are getting converted to electricity only for a particular point of time during the day, or it is seasonal. And if you look at the energy storage costs or the development of the energy storage technologies, we still don't have much of it available. So while we say that the energy from a wind or a solar is available and it is cheap, actually and factually that's not the case. It's energy which is available seasonal. So maybe when it is available, you don't have a demand for that kind of usage. The second part is we need base load energy. And the difference is a solar and a wind is an electrical energy. If you look at India, and these are statistical numbers, the requirement of electricity or electrical energy in the entire energy paradigm is only about 13 to 15%. So where are you going to get alternate energy for the balance 85%? And those energy forms are transportation, aviation, cooking, heating, cooling. So those forms of energy we are not going to get from the wind and solar. And that base load energy for sustenance of economies and the shift to happen from fossil is only going to happen from bioenergy. Now, bioenergy, agriculture residue is one of them. Yes, there is forest residue. There are going to be plantations for the bioenergy. So there are models where you can use wastelands for plantation of particular type of species of trees or the bamboo varieties, multiple types of grasses. And this is going to be a sustainable energy. So where am I going to get aviation fuel from to replace the fossil? Only biomass. Where am I going to get compressed biogas to replace LNG? Only or PNG, pipe natural gas, is from biomass. So decentralized biomass energy is the form. Now, depending on the demand of the market or the utilization, we will have to see the form we convert it to. So some places it would get converted to electricity, some places to steam like we are doing, some places to compressed biogas and so on and so forth. So that's where the demand is coming from. The 85% to be kind of looked at in terms of replacement. The other part is, if you look at solar and wind, it requires large amount of land to set up these projects.
Right.
And we are doing it. We are doing it globally and we should do it. But at some point of time, that land is going to be finite. Hundreds and thousands of acres of solar farms are already existing. Where are you going to get more land from? And what we are looking at from bioenergy is to utilize the agriculture waste. So we are not displacing food. We are not displacing a food versus energy paradigm, or we're not opening up that Pandora's box. We are saying what's available as a waste in the bioenergy stream to get converted to a different form of energy. Now, when you look at the linkage between a farmer or an ex-defense personnel, since I come from the defense background, it's only about finding resources to be able to do it. So if you look at a farmer, and if you look at, say, Maharashtra, and I was appalled to read the newspaper yesterday, which spoke about, in this last 1 year, 300 farmer deaths in Maharashtra. Because of the unseasonal rain, unseasonal hail which came in. And why should a farmer have to commit suicide? The fact that the farmer has sown a crop, even if there is no commodity produced, so the crop fails, the crop is still standing. There is biomass value to it. And that energy value transformation is good enough money for the farmer to survive.
Right.
So we are saying, hey, there is a utilization of the crop, even if it is a failure.
Brilliant.
There is a resource which it can get converted to. The challenge is for the demand and the industry to come. So that's the replacement which we are trying to fix.
But how many people really know about it? Do you think there's a lack of information which needs to go out to the farmers who get to know that, okay, I mean, even if the crops fail due to these weather reasons, I mean, but they don't really know about it, right?
That's right. So it's early days. I would say the bioenergy spectrum is only been about 8 to 10 years now. And the demand side growth needs to come. And there needs to be policy intervention. We need the central and state government to get involved. We need them to push for this entrepreneurship cycle on the bioenergy spectrum to start and create the market linkage for the farmer. So like we have the Food Corporation of India buying grain at a price, or like we have the NAFED and NAFCOs of the world doing work with the farming community, we also need to create an ecosystem for this farm waste or agriculture waste to become a commodity at a price point where the farmer knows that for X quantity from my field, I am going to get this price. And the industry needs to know that this commodity or the agriculture residue at X price needs to get transformed to energy at Y price. So those linkages and work need to happen. And that's where I think the government support, the understanding, and maybe a nodal ministry or a nodal agency or a corporation or a body needs to get constituted. So we have the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, which does work on the alternate energy space, and they do look at bioenergy as well. Unfortunately, they look at bioenergy only from the electricity spectrum, whereas, as I mentioned, the entire energy space. So we need to have a new nodal body, a think tank, which is going to drive this 85% energy transformation from bioenergy. So that's some space that we kind of, on a policy advocacy space or the engagement with government, is something which we are sensitizing the regulators, the bureaucrats, the politicians to look at this shift of energy. And hopefully, I'm very positive about it, that it is going to happen. Proof of the pudding in what we do is certain large global DFIs. So these are development financial institutions and private equity impact space funds have seen and recognized the potential of what Prespl is. And we got invested in private equity capital, impact capital in Prespl, which has kind of given us the impetus to sustain in what we're doing. Because any business you look at in a new space, you're not going to be profitable day one. So to build and be a first mover, there are disadvantages where you're going to burn some capital. Having said that, today, Prespl for the new generation entrepreneurs to look at this business has made a roadmap. We are in our 9th year of business and we have survived. We have some large global names, and I take the liberty to name them. We have a Responsibility, which is a global impact private equity fund headquartered out of Zurich. We were one of the first investments they made in the Indian market in 2013. They still continue to be invested in Prespl. We have the NEEF fund, which is promoted by State Bank of India and DFID UK. So it's a government-to-government fund, which was promulgated by a G2G agreement between India and UK. And hence, they have supported the business of Prespl because they find the impact value in what we are creating. And more recently, in August of 2019, we got invested by Shell Global. So for a large oil and gas major like Shell, having a presence pan global, for them to look at Prespl and invest in the business of Prespl is testimony to the fact that there is a huge potential to the business of bioenergy. Having said that as one piece, this should kind of catalyze and mobilize many more entrepreneurs to look at Prespl. And fortunately, since I interact with a lot of people, a lot of seminars and places, I do see this shift happening. So there are youngsters, there are entrepreneurs who are looking at this bioenergy spectrum and they are entering into the field. And when I look at them, I kind of see myself 10 years ago where it was a blank drawing board and we were kind of saying, what do we need to sketch or write on this? So we try and support such entrepreneurs. So Prespl has now launched something which is, so I mentioned about VLE, Village Level Entrepreneur, right, who we support. The second space is what we call as a channel partner. So we support these channel partners to do what Prespl is doing. Mm-hmm. We support them to set up these briquetting and pelleting plants. We are getting financial institutions on board to support them with finance. And Prespl is giving them 100% offtake market. We train them, we kind of see that they set up these projects, they are able to run it, we oversee everything as an overarching big brother over there, but ensure that they do not have to go through the pains and the kind of startup issues which we faced, and we are supporting them to be off the block much faster. So we kind of would like to maybe ask your viewers and listeners to be able to do this, get associated with a Prespl or do it independently, get into the space. And if you feel and find some challenges, contact us and we'll be happy to support and help you. That's one part of it. The second part of it is look at the market and look at being disruptive to the market. Look at providing a market an alternative space of a form of energy which the market will kind of move to you to say, hey, here is somebody who's giving me an alternative, and the alternative is more cost effective, is more indigenous, is made in India, so why not I go for it? And that will be the driver for the change to happen. So in your geographical area, look at these potentials where you could do this and start off. And maybe you fail, and the failure will give you a teaching and learning to be able to do it better the second time around. So if you fail, go back to the drawing board. You know what you're not supposed to do, so think differently and go back to the field.
Exactly.
There is, believe me, unless you fail, you're not going to see success.
Right.
So learn to fail and do fail, because that failure is going to open up more avenues of being able to look at things. So believe me, we fail every single day.
Right.
And we are at it. So we have the patience and the perseverance. And then we find ways to rethink and go back to the drawing board and look at how we can deliver.
Brilliant. Yeah, I guess, yes. I mean, as an entrepreneur, I think, failure is the core if you want to learn, so fail forward is the only way to go ahead, right?
Today, we have a vision of going from 80 gigawatt, which we have installed in renewable energy, to 480 gigawatt, which the Prime Minister has announced globally, right? So India is going to go from 80 gigawatt to 480 gigawatt. On a similar level, there needs to be an announcement of a bioenergy mission by a body within India with targets set. And those need to be reviewed, those need to be implemented. And let's look at this bioenergy mission body under a ministry or a separate ministry to get formed. And then let's roll it out.
Super awesome. So I really hope that the government looks at this and intervenes and extends some support. So I mean, quickly, if you could just elaborate on, you mentioned that you are also enabling the armed forces. So.
Yes. So what there is typically, if you look at the PBOR, the personal below officer rank of the defense forces, the defense forces need the young youth for war, right? So our system is such that in their late 30s or early 40s, a bulk of these ex-servicemen are kind of, they retire or they're made to retire because that's the lifespan that they have in the armed forces, and are available pan-India without much job potential. So a young youth at the age of 16, 17 joins the defense forces, serves for about 15 to 17 years, and late 30s is kind of retired out.
Mm-hmm.
So in the prime time of youth, they do not have a job. They do not have the skill set because all they have learned is maybe to go to war in their particular skill set. So, and most of them are from rural India.
Right.
So they do not have the availability of platforms for jobs. So what we are here trying to do is, since we are going to this rural area and you find this disciplined force available, this force who if taught something, can deliver. And so we engage with them and we teach them of what is required. And we create this linkage between the farmer and these ex-defense people who are apart from the farming community itself. And then they kind of run the system for us. In terms of standard operating procedures we create, training we have given them, what we expect them to do as supervisors or people who are doing this work, and they manage the ecosystem.
Right.
So it's a readily available workforce with no work for them, and we are creating jobs for them.
Right.
So the defense people are the ones who kind of become the Prespl employees on our payrolls. And the VLE is the farming community, which are doing work for themselves. It also opens up a job opportunity for the ex-defense people to become VLEs. So they can also become VLEs to do this in their ecosystem.
Brilliant.
So that's how we are creating the linkage.
Super. How cool is that? So tell me, for one of the first movers, what are the challenges and the opportunities? Because it's a complete new industry, right? So
one of the challenges which we would like to see government and policy intervention coming in, it is still not recognized as an industry. So unless it gets recognition as an industry, the bioenergy space or the biomass supply chain management space, the formal banking sector finance is not going to be available. And unfortunately, it is not available. So while we have been able to raise finance and capital, private equity capital, the key drivers of growth have to be formal capital from the banking sector. So you need term loans, you need working capital, you need this kind of finance, maybe a priority sector window to look at, and this is still not available. So that's a challenge. So if you look at anybody who wants to enter this space, where are they going to get the money from? So that's something we expect a formalization of the sector to happen. So people who can look at it is the Ministry of Small and Medium Enterprise, the Ministry of Power and Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, Ministry of Petroleum, maybe Rural Development and Agriculture Ministry. So if we are able to formalize this, then the banking sector can get involved. So that's one challenge. The second challenge is we have a huge program now for skilling India and development. So the kind of roles and job profiles we have created with the teams that we work with in Prespl does not have any formal form of education or skilling. So while we are doing that, if we find the formal kind of resource available, we or anybody else could immediately hire them. So in this case, first we hire them, we train them, we onboard them. So this could be done as part of the Skill India mission or such kind of programs. The last part is the market linkage and the demand side. So we expect policy to change for the demand side to happen. Like on the wind and solar side, we have a demand where we say that there are renewable energy purchase obligations, which kind of become a driver for that sector to grow.
Right.
So similarly, can we have renewable energy purchase obligations for the bioenergy side? And then it would necessarily mean that the public and private sector oil marketing companies kind of step in for this growth to get driven. And that's how the Shells of the world have invested in a Prespl, because I think they have recognized the fact that this form of bioenergy needs to grow.
Right, completely true. Yeah, I guess that's the future. So tell me, we were just having a conversation. You mentioned that, there's this Twitter that reached out to you and you were selected for the Mission Innovation Champion for being so.
So it was not Twitter which reached out, but I think it was a pleasant surprise one day in the morning.
You got a tweet.
Where I got tagged on a tweet from the Mission Innovation and I learned that Prespl and me individually were awarded or selected as the Mission Innovation Champion for India. And this particularly, the Mission Innovation Program is between 30 countries where the program is to identify companies, identify processes which could be disseminated between these 30 countries so that the sustainable development goals are fast-tracked. And it was really pleasant surprise to get recognized as one of the potential businesses or companies where the work we do contributes towards fast-tracking the SDGs. And I do believe, because if you look at the 17 SDGs, I think to most of them we would fit to the T. We are rural, we are gender agnostic, we have financial inclusion, we have job creation, we have waste to energy, we have climate change mitigation, we stop pollution. So this kind of a business model is what the 30 countries are willing to adopt. And I feel many more countries globally would look at it.
Lovely, super awesome. So any last words to our listener, and what is the future roadmap for Prespl?
I would say look at entrepreneurship, look at being disruptive and the change maker. Look at sectors which are the future, like bioenergy. Look at rural India and become the driver of the linkage for forms of energy. And anybody needing any kind of support, do follow us, do contact us. We work out of a pan-India basis, multiple states today. And I can assure you, from my side and my team side, we would be very willing to support each one of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So thank you for being part of Change I Am Possible podcast, and really appreciate you being part of this. So yes, we are at the cusp of some dynamic changes, right? I mean, there's this energy revolution which is happening over here in India, and biomass is going to be one of those this potent technology which is going to play a very huge role in redefining the future energy consumption. Yes, I mean, like you rightfully said, that there needs to be a demand which needs to be created. Today, our world is consuming only fossil fuel, right? And it's harming the environment in a way which is extremely detrimental, right? So there needs to be a change which needs to take place, and change makers such as yourself, are coming together, and I guess everybody needs to come together to build a better future. So yeah, like always, I'm going to leave behind all the details below of Mr. Monish Ahuja, so you guys can reach out, because the idea is this is a community. This is about building a better today, building a better tomorrow, and it can only be done together. So thank you for the ones who are listening, and if you like this, please press the subscribe button. And until next time, see you guys. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thanks again.